Good day. Today we will discuss about finding the solution for quadratic equations. Let's define first what is quadratic equation. Quadratic equation is an equation containing a single variable wherein the highest exponent is 2. It is also called equation of the second degree. Its general form is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a is not equal to 0. The name quadratic comes from the Latin word quadratus, which means square. Because in this equation, variable is multiplied by itself or gets squared. The graph of a quadratic equation look like this. Let's evaluate the structure of a quadratic equation. This exponent makes this equation quadratic. The value of a should not be equal to 0. If the value of a becomes 0, then this term will be 0. The remaining equation will not be a quadratic equation anymore, but a linear equation. X are the unknown or what we call variables. A, b, and c are what we call the coefficients. A is the quadratic coefficient. B is the linear coefficient. C is what we call the constant. The value of x that will satisfy the equation, or should we say makes the equation true, is called the solution, or roots. Quadratic equations has at most 2 solutions. Now, let's discuss on how to find the solution of quadratic equations. There are different ways to find the solutions of a quadratic equation. The first one is what we call factoring by inspection. In this method, we will find the factors or the terms that when multiplied will result to the given quadratic equation. For example, find the factors of the quadratic equation, x squared plus 3x plus 2 equals 0. In this equation, a equals positive 1, b equals positive 3, and c equals positive 2. First, we need to find the factors of c. From our equation, c is equal to positive 2. Therefore, we will find the factors of positive 2. The factors of positive 2 are negative 1 and negative 2, and positive 1 and positive 2. Now, among those factors, we will select which are the factors that when added will be equal to b. Again, from our equation, b is equal to positive 3. Negative 1 plus negative 2 equals negative 3. Therefore, those are not the factors that we're looking for. Positive 1 plus positive 2 equals positive 3. Therefore, these are the correct factors. These factors will be added to x. Thus, the factors are x plus 1 and x plus 2. When x plus 1 is multiplied by x plus 2, the result should be x squared plus 3x plus 2. Now that we know the factors, the next step is to find the solutions or roots. To find the solution, since x squared plus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0, then both of each factors are also equal to 0. Thus, x plus 1 equal to 0 and x plus 2 is also equal to 0. From here, we can get the value of x. X is equal to negative 1 and also, x is equal to negative 2. The second way to find the solution of a quadratic equation is by completing the square. This is a method used to solve a quadratic equation by changing its form in such a way that one side of the equation will turn into a perfect square. To help you visualize the concept of this completing the square method, let's take a look at this equation, x squared plus bx equals 0. Let's imagine x squared is the area of this square. Therefore, each side of this square is equal to x. Then, let's say, bx is the area of this rectangle, its width is b, and its height is x. Imagine that using all of these shapes, we need to create a perfect square. In order to do that, let's cut this rectangle in half. From here, the width of each rectangle will be b divided by 2. Its height will still be x. By doing that, the area of each rectangle will be bx over 2. Now, let's attach these shapes together with the aim of forming a perfect square. One of the rectangle will be attached in this side and the other one, let's put it at the bottom. You will notice that, to make this a perfect square, we need to fill in this gap. We need to put a piece on it. And the dimension of the missing piece will be b over 2 by b over 2. Therefore, the area needed to be added to make a perfect square is b over 2 squared. Going back to our equation, we now know that this equation will not form a perfect square. To make it a perfect square, we still need to add the missing piece. But always remember, whatever we add in this side of the equation, we also need to add it on the other side. That is what we call balancing the equation. From the figure earlier, we know that to make this a perfect square, we need to add b over 2 squared. Since we added on this side of the equation, we also need to add it on the other side. Now, since this equation is already a perfect square, we can now write it as the quantity x plus b over 2 squared is equal to b over 2 squared. Taking the square root of both sides of the equation will result to x plus b over 2 equals positive and negative b over 2. Solving for x is equal to b over 2 minus b over 2. Also, x is equal to negative b over 2 minus b over 2. Therefore, the roots or the solution for this equation is x equals 0 and x equals negative b. Let's take a look at another example. Let's find the solution for this equation, 2x squared plus 20x minus 48 equals 0. Let's simplify first the equation by dividing all terms by the quadratic coefficient. In this equation, quadratic coefficient is 2. By dividing all the terms by 2, it will result to x squared plus 10x minus 24 equals 0. Let's move this constant to the other side of the equation. We will now have x squared plus 10x equals 24. Now, our goal is to make this term a perfect square. Again, in order to do that, we need to add the missing piece. And we need to add that on both sides of the equation to keep them balanced. Let's say the missing piece will be represented as d. We need to add d in this side of the equation, and also on the other side. Now, here is the technique in getting the missing piece or the value of d. The value of d is equal to b squared over 4a. Wherein b is the linear coefficient and a is the quadratic coefficient. From our equation, b is equal to 10 and a is equal to 1. Substituting these values to get the value of d, d will be equal to 100 divided by 4 times 1, which is equal to 25. Now that we have the value of d, we can now write our equation as x squared plus 10x plus 25 equals 24 plus 25. And since this equation is now a perfect square, we can now write it as the quantity x plus 5 squared equals 49. Since 49 is a positive integer, getting the square root of both sides of the equations will give us two results. X plus 5 equals 7, and x plus 5 equals negative 7. From here, we can now solve the value of x. The value of x, or the solution to this quadratic equation will be x equals 2 and x equals negative 12. To summarize what we have done, here are the 5 steps in completing the square. Step 1, simplify the equation by dividing all the terms by the quadratic coefficient. Step 2, using the simplified equation, move the constant c to the right-hand side of the equation. Step 3, complete the square of the left-hand side of the equation. Remember, whatever we will do to the left-hand side of the equation, we also need to do it in the right-hand side. That is called balancing the equation. Step 4, take the square root of both sides of the equation. And finally, step 5, solve for the value of x. Now, let's go to the third way of getting the solutions of quadratic equation, which is by using the quadratic formula. In quadratic formula, x is equal to negative b, plus or minus the square root of the quantity, b squared, minus 4ac, all over 2a. A is the quadratic coefficient, b is the linear coefficient, and c is the constant. The plus or minus sign here indicates two operations. It means that x could be equal to the following solutions. The first solution is that x is equal to negative b, plus the square root of the quantity, b squared, minus 4ac, all over 2a. The other solution is that x is equal to negative b, minus the square root of the quantity, b squared, minus 4ac, all over 2a. Let's use the same equation that we have used earlier, 2x squared, plus 20x, minus 48 equals 0. In this equation, a is equal to 2, b is equal to 20 and c is equal to negative 48. Take note of the sign when getting the value of the coefficients. Now, let's substitute these values to the quadratic formula. For the first solution, x will be equal to negative 20, plus the square root of the quantity, 20 squared, minus 4 times 2, times negative 48, all over 2 times 2. From here, we will be able to get the value of x, which is equal to 2. Now let's take a look at the second solution. For the second solution, x will be equal to negative 20, minus the square root of the quantity, 20 squared, minus 4 times 2, times negative 48, all over 2 times 2. From here, we will be able to get the value of x, which is equal to negative 12. As you can see, it's the same answer that we've got earlier when we used the completion of square method. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something from this video. Please don't forget to click the like button, share, and subscribe to this channel. Appreciate it.